The lesson for today. You know, I often tell people that I think this game was invented by aliens to screw up humans, and I'm not necessarily totally kidding. You know, it is like this game is trying to trick us. It's trying to fool us. And the worst part about it is, in my opinion, over the last 20, 30, or 40 years, we've got misleading, misguiding information that sends us down the wrong path, which makes learning so much more difficult. So if I can take this time to maybe give us an insight and why it is we're all having such a hard time, I hope you can appreciate this as for what it is, because this is probably why we seem to hit that plateau and we don't seem to get by it. So let's start with this. It is my belief that it is perfectly normal for a human being to not want to fall forwards. There's something about the way we're anatomically built that we'd much rather fall on our butt than our nose. So there's something about us always wanting to fall backwards. Well, then you had this game where you see the ball going into the air, or you perceive that it should go into the air. So again, that almost adds to the down part of the learning process, because now that kind of gives us the right to lean backwards. Well, if you lean backwards, that shallows out your swing and will have you hitting behind the golf ball or hitting it fat. One or the other. I'm sorry, you'll hit it fat or you'll hit it thin. One or the other, there's not too much in between. So what I would ask of you is to understand that this is probably the truth. So give me the benefit of the doubt. If this is true, then you should spend at least some of your time, again, understanding that we need to get the leading edge of the club to hit just below the equator of the ball on its way down to the lowest part of your swing, which is opposite your left shoulder joint. So each time you go to practice, you might want to sit there and say, okay, how is this game trying to fool me? Well, the first way it's trying to fool you is trying to get you to lean backwards, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. So, you know, I could stand out there and I could hit golf balls, making it look like I'm hitting little pitch shots. And people are going to say, well, you're practicing your pitching or your chipping. And I'm not. I'm practicing my ability to stop myself from wanting to get into this rotten habit. So that, what I'm doing, may make me chip and pitch better. Well, that's great, and that's a result of. However, when I'm sitting here practicing this, my full intention is my mind is to learn to like this, as opposed to learning to like this, which is extremely easy to do if you're not careful. So, like step number one, let's get it in our minds that the idea of the golf swing is to allow the leading edge of the club to hit the golf ball down to the lowest part of my swing, which will enable my body language to go down through the golf ball, which stops me from leaning backwards. And if you get good at chipping and pitching because of that, wonderful. It is my fear that too many of us go to the practice tee and just hit golf balls. And trust me, if you do this, it will not be long before you're out of position to hit it. And you'll blame your swing, you'll blame all sorts of stuff, but the truth is, you have learned to put yourself out of position to be able to strike the golf ball. So I may be just hitting some for that understanding. Okay, so let's move on from that. And we'll show you some drills on this a little bit later, and this may be combining some drills, but you get my point. What do I care? As long as you learn, I don't care if we get it in the absolute this way or that way, as long as you learn from it. Next, I want to focus my attention on making sure that I really truly understand what the face of the golf club should do through the golf ball. What I do is, as you've been watching my CDs, is I want to control my whole golf swing through my right hand. I call it the focus point on my right hand, where I put the golf club on my right hand correctly. And then what I want to do is make sure that I allow the blade, the face of the club, to rotate through the ball, which pulls my right side through the golf ball correctly and onto balance. That's growing my golf swing. So now I still have my attention in my hands, where I'm allowing the face of the golf club to roll up through to my finish position, always through my right hand. I need to continue to correlate from a specific spot on my hand, from the club to my brain, so when I hit the ball well, I can tell myself exactly what I did. So I may hit 10 balls just for the purpose of making sure that that's happening, which once again allows my weight pressure to and not to. We've said in other CDs, and we'll say it again because you can never hear it too many times, the club face is not supposed to go straight. It's not supposed to go out. It's supposed to be allowed to rotate through the golf ball. So that's my hands. The next thing is we've got to move into our arms. What should our arms do? They should swing on plane. We have said before, it is an inside towards out swing path with an inside follow through. So I may take 10 balls and make sure that my focus is inside out to the ball, inside out to the ball, and then on plane from the golf ball forwards, which helps the golf ball go straight, not out to the right. So that's my arms, and it doesn't take long for me to get those in place because this is what they want to do. Once again, you got to be careful that it's not inside out. You got to be careful that we don't fall into this trap of down the line. And there's nothing wrong with going to the practice tee and understanding why generations upon generations before you have failed. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it should be part of the deal. You should be made to study why people are failing, because if you knew that, then maybe you wouldn't do it. So again, I'm not just hitting golf balls, I'm working my way through the golf swing. Next, my arms are in place. I want to understand my body. I've said, and I will continue to say, that if I swing the club head correctly and the shaft correctly, my body works along with the motion of the shaft and the head of the golf club. So I may hit some golf balls where I can just make sure the shaft's working right, I can make sure the face of the golf club's working right, and I'll sit here and I'll tell myself that if I swing the club on plane, if I bring the shaft into the ball correctly, if I rotate the face, then my body will work correctly also. My want during this is to stop myself from having or attempting to use my big muscles or my body to do this. So not only am I making the swings, I've got this ongoing conversation with myself to continue to let myself know why what I'm doing is correct, so that when I get on the golf course I can do it with confidence. The more confidence you do it with, overall the better you're going to play. So I may make a swing that looks like this, and the whole purpose for that motion was to recognize that if I control this and if I control this, I get this for free. So the concept of the understanding of the lesson here is to go to the practice tee, keep your brain engaged. Don't ever send your brain somewhere while your body's sitting there practicing. And there's nothing wrong with this ongoing conversation with yourself to say, I'm going to spend 5 shots or 5 minutes making sure that I have that correct, because that creates this. There's nothing wrong with spending 5 shots or 5 minutes making sure that we're allowing the face to rotate, because if I do that, my balance starts moving in the correct direction. There's nothing wrong with, okay, I'm going to hit a few shots with my arms, inside, out to the ball, inside, because this makes the ball go straight and it gets my body moving correctly. And then you can hit balls that look just the same as you just did, but you're doing it for a whole separate purpose, and the whole separate purpose this time is to make sure that you understand that you don't need to work this. You only need to control this, and this is controlled through that. So that's the lessons part of it. Now I want to get a little bit more in depth of the detail and show you some drills that you can think about doing that will match what we just said.